David Thompson stood frozen in the grand hallway of his Lagos mansion, staring at the little girl before him. Her eyes, those familiar brown eyes, were fixed on the silver-framed photograph hanging on his wall. "Why is my mom's photo in your house?" 9-year-old Rose asked, her voice small but steady. David felt his heart stop. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. He looked from the child to the photograph of Maya, the woman he had loved and lost 10 years ago. The woman whose face had haunted every corner of this empty mansion. His hands began to tremble. Your mother?" he whispered. "Hello family, welcome back. Please take a moment to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, it truly means a lot to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. So sit back and relax as we dive into the story." Rose nodded, clutching a worn plastic bag filled with oranges she had been selling on the street. "That's my mama. Maya Johnson. Why do you have her picture?" The words hit David like a physical blow. Maya Johnson. After all these years of searching, of hiring investigators, of lying awake wondering if she was alive or dead, here stood a child. Her child. "Where is she?" David asked, his voice breaking. "Where is your mother now?" Rose's eyes filled with tears. "She's very sick, sir. We live in Ajigunle. She can't work anymore. That's why I sell oranges, to buy her medicine." David felt the floor shift beneath his feet. Maya was alive. She had been in Lagos all this time, suffering, struggling, raising a child alone while he lived in wealth and comfort. "Take me to her," he said urgently. "Right now. Please." But even as he spoke, a terrible thought gripped his chest. He stared at Rose, at her brown eyes, at the curve of her nose, at the way she stood with quiet dignity despite her torn dress and worn-out sandals. She looked like Maya. But she also looked like someone else. She looked like him. "Rose," he said, kneeling down to her level, his voice shaking. "How old are you?" 9 years old, sir." 9 years. The timeline matched perfectly. David's mind raced back to that terrible day 10 years ago when Maya had vanished without explanation. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. He had searched everywhere, but it was as if she had disappeared from the earth itself. Now, standing before him was the answer to every question he had carried for a decade. "What's your full name?" he asked gently. "Rose Johnson, sir. Not Rose Thompson." Maya had never told her. Maya had raised this child, their child, alone in poverty while his own mother's threats had kept them apart. David felt rage and grief collide in his chest. But beneath it all was something stronger, hope. "Rose," he said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder, "I need you to take me to your mother right now. And I promise you, everything is about to change." But as they rushed toward his car, one question burned in his mind. Would Maya even want to see him after everything that had happened? David's luxury car sped through the crowded streets of Lagos, weaving between Danfo buses and Okada riders. Rose sat quietly in the passenger seat, her small hands gripping the leather armrest. She had never been inside such a beautiful car before. The air conditioning made her shiver after years of sleeping in their one-room apartment with no fan. "How did you find my house, Rose?" David asked gently, his eyes on the road. "How did you see that photograph?" Rose looked down at her lap. "I came to your gate to sell oranges, sir. Your security man was kind. He bought some and let me rest in the shade. Through the window, I saw the picture on your wall." David's chest tightened. While he had been searching the world for Maya, their daughter had been outside his gate trying to survive. "Tell me about your mother," he said softly. "What happened to her?" Rose's voice trembled. "Mama used to work as a seamstress. She sewed beautiful clothes for people in the market. But 3 months ago she started coughing. She couldn't stop. Now she can't even get out of bed." Tears rolled down Rose's cheeks. "I'm scared, sir. Every night I pray she won't die. I sell oranges after school to buy her medicine, but it's never enough." David's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Maya had been suffering all this time and he had known nothing. His own child had been forced to work the streets just to keep her mother alive. "You go to school?" he asked, surprised. Rose nodded. "Yes, sir. Mama says education is important. Even when we have no food, she makes sure I go to school. She sold her sewing machine last year to pay my school fees." David felt something break inside his chest. Maya had sacrificed everything for their daughter, the child he never knew existed. They turned into Ajigunle and the neighborhood changed dramatically. The smooth roads became rough and potholed. The tall buildings gave way to rusty zinc shacks packed tightly together. Children played in dirty water that ran through open gutters. This was where his Maya had been living. This was where his daughter had grown up. "It's that one, sir." Rose pointed to a faded yellow building with peeling paint. "We live on the second floor." David parked the car and followed Rose up the narrow concrete stairs. The smell of kerosene stoves and old wood filled the air. Loud voices echoed from different rooms as families argued, laughed, and lived their lives in the cramped space. Rose stopped at a wooden door with a broken handle. She pushed it open slowly. "Mama," she called softly. "Mama, I'm home. And I brought someone." The room was tiny, barely large enough for the worn mattress on the floor, a small kerosene stove in the corner, and a wooden box that served as a table. Clothes hung on a rope stretched across one wall. And there, on the mattress, lay Maya. David's breath caught in his throat. She was so thin, so pale. Her once bright eyes were closed, her breathing shallow and labored. Her beautiful face, the face he had loved, was now hollow with sickness and hunger. "Maya," he whispered, his voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment she stared at him as if seeing a ghost. Then her eyes widened in shock and fear. "No," she gasped, trying to sit up. "No, David. You can't be here. You have to leave. Please." But David was already moving toward her, tears streaming down his face. Why was Maya afraid of him? And what secret had she been hiding all these years? David knelt beside the mattress, his heart breaking at the sight before him. Maya tried to push herself away, but she was too weak. Her thin arms trembled with the effort. "Please, David," she begged, her voice barely a whisper. "You have to go. If your mother finds out." "My mother?" David's voice rose with anger and confusion. "Maya, what does my mother have to do with this? Why did you leave me? Why didn't you tell me about Rose?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Rose, who stood in the doorway watching with frightened eyes. "Rose, sweetheart, please go outside for a moment." "But Mama." "Please, baby. Just for a few minutes." Rose hesitated, then slowly walked out, closing the door behind her. The moment she left, Maya broke down sobbing. "Your mother came to me 10 years ago," Maya said between gasps for air. 2 weeks after you proposed to me. 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant." David felt his blood turn cold. "What did she do?" Maya's hands shook as she wiped her tears. "She came to my small apartment in Acadia. She said I was a nobody, a poor girl trying to trap her son with a pregnancy. She said you would never marry someone like me." "That's not true," David shouted. "I loved you. I wanted to marry you." "I know," Maya whispered. "But she didn't stop there. She threatened me, David. She said if I didn't disappear, she would destroy my family. My father was sick at the time, he needed surgery. She said she would make sure no hospital in Lagos would treat him." David's entire body went rigid. His mother. The woman who had raised him, who had always claimed she only wanted his happiness, she had done this. "She gave me money," Maya continued, her voice hollow. 500,000 naira. She said it was enough to start over somewhere else. She said if I truly loved you, I would let you live the life you deserved, with someone from your own class. "So you just left?" David's voice cracked. "You didn't fight? You didn't tell me?" Maya's tears fell faster now. "I was 22 years old, David. I was pregnant and terrified. Your mother was powerful and rich. She showed me photographs, pictures of you at business meetings, at galas with important people. She said I would ruin your future." She coughed violently, her whole body shaking. David reached for her, but she held up a weak hand. "I thought about telling you," she gasped when the coughing stopped. "Every single day for 10 years I thought about it. But then I would look at Rose, at her torn uniform, at the days we had no food, and I felt so ashamed. How could I come to you like this? How could I burden you with our poverty?" David grabbed her hand, holding it tight despite her protests. "You were never a burden, Maya. Never. And Rose, our daughter, she is the most precious thing in the world." Maya stared at him, searching his face for any sign of lies. You're not angry that I kept her from you?" "I'm angry at the situation," David said firmly. "I'm furious at my mother. But you, Maya? You survived. You kept our daughter alive. You sacrificed everything to give her a chance at life." He looked around the tiny room at the poverty that surrounded them. "But this ends today. Right now. I'm taking you both to the hospital." Maya shook her head weakly. "David, I can't afford." "I don't care about money." David's voice thundered through the small room. "I've spent 10 years living in a mansion that felt like a prison. 10 years with all the money in the world and nothing that mattered. You think I'm going to let you die now that I've found you? Maya's lips trembled. What about your mother? She'll never accept. My mother will do as I say or she'll lose me forever, David said with steel in his voice. I was a fool once. I let her control my life. But I'm not that man anymore. He stood up and opened the door. Rose stood there, tears streaming down her face. She had heard everything. David held out his hand to her. Rose, I know this is confusing, but I'm your father. And I'm going to take care of you and your mother from now on. Do you trust me? Rose looked at her mother, then back at David. Slowly, she placed her small hand in his. But as David carried Maya toward his car, one question remained. Would his mother accept defeat, or was this just the beginning of a bigger war? City General Hospital in Victoria Island was the best private hospital in Lagos. David carried Maya through the gleaming entrance while Rose held tightly to his hand, her eyes wide with wonder at the spotless white floors and modern equipment. Within minutes, nurses surrounded them with a wheelchair. Maya was too weak to protest as they wheeled her toward the emergency wing. I want the best doctors, David told the head nurse firmly. Money is not an issue. She needs immediate care. Yes, sir, Mr. Thompson, the nurse replied, recognizing him immediately. The Thompson name carried weight in Lagos. Dr. Williams is our best physician. I'll call him right away. As they wheeled Maya into a private examination room, Rose clutched David's jacket. Is Mama going to die? She whispered, her voice shaking. David knelt down and looked into his daughter's eyes that mirrored his own. No, sweetheart. Your mother is going to get the best care possible. I promise you. Within 20 minutes, Dr. Williams arrived, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and steady hands. He examined Maya thoroughly while David and Rose waited outside. The minutes felt like hours. Rose sat on the hospital bench, swinging her legs nervously. David noticed her worn-out school shoes, the patches on her uniform, the way her stomach growled with hunger. When did you last eat? He asked gently. Rose looked embarrassed. Yesterday morning, sir. Mama made Gary before I went to school. David's heart clenched. His daughter had been starving while he ate 3 meals a day in his mansion. He immediately called a hospital staff member and ordered food. Rice, chicken, fruit, juice, everything a growing child needed. When the food arrived, Rose stared at it as if she'd seen a miracle. All of this? For me. Eat, Rose, David said softly. From now on, you'll never go hungry again. Rose ate slowly at first, then faster as if afraid the food might disappear. David watched her, feeling both joy and crushing guilt. How many nights had she gone to bed hungry? How many times had Maya skipped meals so Rose could eat? David stood in the hospital corridor, his phone pressed to his ear. His mother's voice came through, smooth and controlled as always. David, darling, it's late. Can't this wait until tomorrow? No, Mother, David said, his voice like ice. It cannot wait. I'm at City General Hospital. I need you to come here immediately. There was a pause. Hospital? Are you hurt? What happened? Just come, Mother. Room 507. And come alone. He hung up before she could ask more questions. His hands were shaking with anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. Rose was watching him from inside the room, her small face pressed against the glass window. David walked back inside and sat beside her. Rose, in a few minutes someone is coming to visit. Someone very important. Who? Rose asked innocently. David hesitated. How do you tell a child she's about to meet the grandmother who had destroyed her family before she was even born? My mother, he said carefully. Your grandmother. Rose's eyes widened. I have a grandmother? Yes, sweetheart. But, David struggled for words. She didn't know about you. And when she gets here, she might be surprised. Maybe even upset. But I need you to be brave, okay? Rose nodded solemnly. I'm always brave. Mama taught me. 30 minutes later, the door opened. Catherine Thompson swept into the room wearing an expensive navy dress and diamond earrings. Her eyes immediately went to David, then to the woman lying in the hospital bed, then to the little girl sitting beside her. Catherine froze. Her face went pale. David, what is this? Hello, Mother, David said coldly. I'd like you to meet someone. This is Maya Johnson. I believe you two have met before. Catherine's eyes widened with recognition and fear. David, I can explain. Can you? David's voice cut through the air like a knife. Can you explain why the woman I loved disappeared 10 years ago? Can you explain why you never told me you threatened her? Catherine glanced nervously at Rose, who was staring at her with curious eyes. David, please. Not in front of the child. The child? David stood up, his voice rising. This child has a name, Mother. Her name is Rose. Rose Thompson. Your granddaughter. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Catherine staggered backward, gripping the door frame for support. Granddaughter? That's impossible. Is it? David moved closer, his eyes blazing. Maya was 2 weeks pregnant when you threatened her 10 years ago. 2 weeks pregnant with my child. Did you know that when you drove her away? Or did you just not care? Catherine's face crumbled. For the first time in David's life he saw his mother, the strong, controlled, powerful Catherine Thompson, look genuinely afraid. I didn't know, she whispered. David, you have to believe me. I didn't know she was pregnant. Would it have mattered? David's voice was bitter. You thought she wasn't good enough for me? You thought her poverty would ruin the great Thompson name. So you destroyed her life. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, not the calculated ones she used to manipulate people. I thought I was protecting you. You were so young, so in love. I thought she was just after your money. She loved me. David shouted. She loved me and you took her away. Do you know where I found them, Mother? In a one-room apartment in Ajigunal. Maya was dying because she couldn't afford medicine. Rose was selling oranges on the street just to keep her mother alive. Catherine looked at Rose, really looked at her for the first time. She saw the worn dress, the too thin arms, the eyes that held too much sadness for a child. And she saw David's eyes staring back at her. Oh God, Catherine whispered, her hand covering her mouth. What have I done? You destroyed 3 lives, David said harshly. Maya has suffered for 10 years. Rose grew up without a father. And I've spent a decade living in an empty mansion, wondering why the woman I loved abandoned me. Catherine sank into a chair, her perfect composure finally breaking. I was wrong. David, I was so wrong. I thought I knew what was best for you. Your father came from nothing and I watched him struggle. I didn't want that life for you. So instead you gave me a life without love? David's voice cracked. A life without the woman I wanted to marry? Without my own daughter? Catherine looked at Maya, who was awake now, watching silently from the bed. I'm sorry, Catherine said, her voice breaking. Miss Johnson, I'm so deeply sorry. I was cruel and heartless. I took everything from you and I can never give those years back. Maya said nothing. She simply turned her face away. Catherine stood on shaking legs and walked slowly to Rose. The little girl watched her grandmother with cautious eyes. Hello, Rose, Catherine said softly, kneeling down despite her expensive dress. I'm your grandmother, and I've made terrible mistakes. Mistakes that hurt your mother and father. Mistakes that hurt you. Rose looked at her father. David nodded gently. Do you want to know me? Catherine asked, tears streaming down her face. Even though I don't deserve it? Rose thought for a long moment. Then, with the wisdom of a child who had known hardship, she said, Mama always tells me that everyone deserves a second chance. But you have to earn it. Catherine let out a sob and nodded. I will. I promise I will. But could Catherine truly change? And would Maya ever forgive the woman who had stolen 10 years of her life? 3 days later, Maya was finally strong enough to sit up in bed. The antibiotics had worked and color was slowly returning to her cheeks. Rose sat beside her every day after school, telling her mother about the amazing things she was learning. David visited every morning and evening, bringing fresh flowers and warm meals. He would sit beside Maya's bed, holding her hand, talking about everything and nothing, just grateful to have her back in his life. On the 4th morning, Dr. Williams came with important news. Miss Johnson, you're recovering beautifully. But there's one more thing we need to discuss. Mr. Thompson has requested a DNA test for Rose. Maya's eyes widened with fear. A DNA test? David, why? Don't you believe she's yours? David squeezed her hand gently. I believe it with all my heart, Maya. But I need legal proof. My mother has power and connections. If she ever tries to hurt you again, I want documents that prove Rose is my daughter. Documents that will protect both of you. Maya relaxed slightly. I understand. Rose is your daughter, David. The test will prove it. Rose looked confused. What's a DNA test? David smiled at her. It's a simple test, sweetheart. The doctor will take a small sample from your cheek and from mine. Then the lab will compare them to prove that I'm your father. But I already know you're my father, Rose said innocently. Mama told me. And you have the same eyes as me. David's heart swelled with love. I know, Rose. But sometimes grown-ups need official papers to make things safe and legal. The test was done that afternoon. Dr. Williams promised the results would be ready in 3 days. Those 3 days were the longest of David's life. He spent every moment he could with Maya and Rose, learning about their lives, their struggles, their dreams. Rose told him stories about the imaginary father she used to describe to her classmates. "I told them you were a sailor," Rose said with a shy smile. "Traveling around the world on big ships. I said that's why you couldn't visit us." David felt tears prick his eyes. "That was a beautiful story, Rose. But the truth is even better. Because now I'm here and I'm never leaving again." On the 3rd day, Dr. Williams returned with an envelope. David's hands shook as he opened it. Maya held her breath. Rose watched with wide, hopeful eyes. David read the results once, twice, 3 times. Then he looked up with tears streaming down his face. 99.9% match, he whispered. "Rose is my daughter." The room erupted with emotion. Maya burst into tears of relief and joy. Rose jumped up and down, clapping her hands. David pulled them both into his arms, holding his family together. "We're a family," Rose said, her voice muffled against David's chest. "A real family." "Yes, sweetheart," David said, kissing the top of her head. "A real family. And nothing will ever separate us again." Later that evening, after Rose had fallen asleep on the hospital sofa, David sat alone with Maya. He held her hand gently, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. "I confronted my mother. I told her everything, about Rose, about what she did to you, about the 10 years we lost." Maya's body tensed. "What did she say?" "She confessed," David replied. "She admitted she threatened you. She admitted she drove you away. And for the first time in my life, I saw her truly broken by what she'd done." Maya looked away, pain flickering across her face. "Does she hate me even more now? Does she hate Rose?" "No," David said firmly. "She was shocked when she learned about Rose. Devastated, actually. She cried, Maya. Real tears. She said she was wrong, that she destroyed 3 lives because of her pride and control." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can forgive her, David. She took everything from me." "I'm not asking you to forgive her," David said gently. "Not yet. Not until you're ready. But she asked if she could meet Rose someday. When you're comfortable. When you feel safe." Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring at her sleeping daughter. "Rose deserves to know her grandmother," she finally whispered. "Even if that grandmother made terrible mistakes. But only when I'm ready. Only when I'm strong enough." David kissed her forehead. "Whenever you're ready, my love. There's no rush. We have all the time in the world now." 2 weeks later, Dr. Williams discharged Maya from the hospital. She was still weak but healing every day. David had arranged everything carefully. "Maya," he said as they prepared to leave, "I want you and Rose to come home with me. To our home." Maya hesitated. "David, your mansion is your world. We can't just." "It stopped being my world the moment you left it," David interrupted gently. "For 10 years that house has been nothing but empty rooms and painful memories. But with you and Rose there, it can finally become a home." Rose bounced excitedly. "Can we, Mama? Please?" Maya smiled through her tears. "Okay, we'll come home." But before heading to the mansion, David had one more surprise. "There's somewhere I want to take you both first." He drove them to a beautiful restaurant overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The sunset painted everything gold and orange. Rose stared at the elegant tables and crystal glasses with wide eyes. "Is this a palace?" she whispered. David laughed. "No, sweetheart. But tonight is special." They ate slowly, savoring every bite. Rose giggled as she tried different foods. Maya watched her daughter with joy she hadn't felt in years. When dessert arrived, David suddenly stood up. His hands trembled as he reached into his jacket. "Maya Johnson," he said, his voice thick with emotion. 10 years ago I was going to ask you something important. But I never got the chance." He pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's hands flew to her mouth. "I've carried this ring for 10 years, David continued, kneeling beside the table. "Through every moment of searching, every night of hoping. I never gave up on us, Maya." He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that sparkled like starlight. "Will you marry me?" Maya couldn't speak. She nodded again and again as tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she finally gasped. "Yes, David. 1,000 times yes." The restaurant erupted in applause as David slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. Rose clapped and laughed, her heart bursting with happiness. That evening they arrived at the mansion in Victoria Island. Rose pressed her face against the car window, amazed by the tall gates and beautiful gardens. Inside, the house felt different somehow, warmer, more alive. David showed Rose to her new bedroom with pink walls and windows overlooking a garden full of flowers. "Is this really mine?" Rose whispered in wonder. "Really yours," David confirmed, watching his daughter explore her new home. Later that night, after Rose had fallen asleep, David found Maya standing in the grand hallway, the same hallway where her photograph had hung for 10 years. "I still can't believe this is real," Maya said softly. David wrapped his arms around her. "It's real, my love. You're home. Rose is home. We're finally together." Maya leaned into him, feeling safe for the first time in a decade. "Your mother?" she said quietly. "When do you think I'll be ready to see her?" "Whenever your heart tells you," David replied. "There's no pressure. She knows she must earn your trust." Maya nodded slowly. "Maybe soon. Not for her sake, but for Rose's. Every child deserves to know their grandmother. And maybe everyone really does deserve a second chance." David kissed her forehead. "That's the woman I fell in love with. Strong, brave, and full of Maya." Outside, the Lagos night hummed with life. But inside the mansion, 3 hearts beat as one. After 10 years of separation, poverty, and pain, after tears and loss and suffering, love had finally conquered all. David stood with his arms around Maya, watching their daughter sleep peacefully in her new room. The house that had been cold and empty for so long was now filled with laughter, warmth, and hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Catherine would have to prove she had truly changed. Maya would need time to heal from years of trauma. Rose would adjust to her new life of comfort and security. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, they were simply a family, reunited, restored, and ready to face whatever came next. Together. 2 weeks passed in the Thompson mansion, and life slowly found its rhythm. Rose adjusted to her new life with the wonder only a child could have. She explored every room, played in the garden, and ate meals that filled her belly completely. Maya grew stronger each day. The hollow look in her cheeks disappeared, replaced by healthy color. She walked through the mansion carefully, still adjusting to the reality that this beautiful place was now her home. But there was still one piece of unfinished business. One conversation that needed to happen. David found Maya one morning sitting by the window, staring out at the garden where Rose was playing. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Maya turned to him with thoughtful eyes. "Your mother. I've been thinking about her request. About meeting Rose." David sat beside her, taking her hand. "Maya, you don't have to." "I know," Maya interrupted gently. "But I've been watching Rose these past weeks. She asks questions about family, about where we came from, about the grandmother she's never met. And I realized something." She looked at David with clear, determined eyes. "Your mother took 10 years from us. She caused so much pain. But if I let that pain control me forever, if I keep Rose from knowing her grandmother, then I'm letting your mother's mistakes continue to hurt us." David's eyes filled with pride and love. "You're ready?" Maya nodded slowly. "I'm ready. Not for her sake, but for Rose's. And maybe for my own healing too. I need to face her. I need to hear her apology myself. I need to see if she's truly changed." David pulled out his phone. "I'll call her right now." "Wait," Maya said, her hand on his arm. "I want to do this on my terms. Here in our home. Where I feel safe. And Rose needs to be present. This is about her future too." David smiled and kissed her forehead. "Whatever you need, my love. I'll arrange it." 3 days later, Catherine Thompson arrived at the mansion. She wore a simple dress. No diamonds, no expensive jewelry. Her face looked older somehow, as if the weight of her guilt had aged her. David met her at the door. "Mother," he said formally. "Thank you for coming. Maya is ready to see you now." Catherine's hands trembled. "David, I don't know what to say to her. How do I apologize for destroying someone's life?" "You start with the truth," David said firmly. "And you let her decide if it's enough." He led her to the living room where Maya sat on the sofa, her back straight, her eyes steady. Rose stood beside her mother, holding her hand. Catherine stopped in the doorway, staring at the woman she had threatened 10 years ago. Maya looked so different now, no longer the frightened young girl who had fled in terror. This Maya was stronger, braver, more beautiful than ever. "Miss Johnson," Catherine said, her voice breaking. I don't deserve your time. I don't deserve to be in your presence. But thank you for allowing me to come." Maya said nothing for a long moment. She simply studied the older woman, searching her face for truth. "Sit down, Mrs. Thompson," Maya finally said, her voice calm but cold. Catherine sat in the chair across from them, perching on the edge as if afraid to get comfortable. Her eyes kept drifting to Rose, to her granddaughter, with wonder and deep regret. 10 years ago, Maya began, her voice steady, you came to my small apartment in Ikeja. You told me I was nothing. You told me I would ruin your son's life. You threatened my sick father. And you gave me money to disappear. Catherine's face crumbled with shame. Yes, I did all of that. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. Do you know what happened after I left? Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. I lost my job because I had to move suddenly. My father died 3 months later. The surgery your money paid for wasn't enough. I was alone, pregnant, and terrified. Tears streamed down Catherine's face. I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I worked as a seamstress in Ajigunal, Maya said. I sewed clothes for 12 hours a day until I couldn't afford the shop anymore. I raised Rose alone, watching her wear torn uniforms to school while other children had new shoes. I went to bed hungry so she could eat. And when I got sick, I lay on a mattress on the floor, praying I wouldn't die and leave my daughter an orphan. Catherine sobbed openly now, her shoulders shaking. What can I do? How can I ever make this right? Maya leaned forward, her eyes blazing. You can't make it right, Mrs. Thompson. Those 10 years are gone forever. The moments I should have shared with David, gone. The childhood Rose should have had, stolen. My father's last days when he asked why David abandoned us, lost. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. But Rose asked me something yesterday. She asked why her grandmother made such terrible choices. And I realized I didn't have an answer. Maya looked directly at Catherine. So I'm asking you now. What? Why did you do it? Catherine wiped her tears with shaking hands. Because I was afraid, she whispered. My husband, David's father, came from poverty. I watched him struggle and fight for everything we have. And I was terrified that David would throw it all away for love. She looked at Maya with desperate eyes. I thought I was protecting him. I thought young love would fade and he would resent you later. I thought you would trap him with a pregnancy. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. But I was pregnant, Maya said quietly. And you didn't know. You sent me away not knowing you were also sending away your grandchild. Catherine's face twisted with anguish. If I had known. Would it have mattered? Maya interrupted. Would you have suddenly decided I was good enough? Or would you have given me more money to raise the child alone and stay out of David's life? Catherine opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer because they both knew the truth. Rose, who had been silent throughout, suddenly spoke. Grandmother, she said softly. Catherine's head snapped up. It was the first time Rose had called her that. Mama taught me that everyone makes mistakes, Rose continued in her clear, innocent voice. Even big mistakes. She said what matters is whether people learn from them and try to be better. She looked at her mother, then back at Catherine. Have you learned? Will you be better? Catherine slid off her chair and knelt on the floor in front of Rose, tears pouring down her face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, my darling girl. I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to be better. Trying to earn your love. Trying to deserve the title of grandmother. She looked up at Maya. I can't give back what I took. But I can promise you this, I will never interfere in your life again. I will never try to control David again. I will accept whatever relationship you're willing to give me, even if it's nothing at all. Maya sat silently, her hand squeezing Rose's. David stood behind them, watching his mother humble herself for the first time in her life. Finally Maya spoke. Rose deserves to know her grandmother. Not the woman who threatened me 10 years ago, but the woman you claim you want to become. So I'm giving you a chance, Mrs. Thompson. One chance. Prove that you've changed. Prove that you can love this family without trying to control it. Catherine nodded eagerly, hope flooding her face. I will. I promise I will. But understand this, Maya added, her voice hard as steel. If you ever try to hurt my daughter, if you ever make her feel less than worthy, if you ever use your money or power to manipulate this family again, you will lose us all forever. Do you understand? I understand, Catherine whispered. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. Rose looked at her mother. Can grandmother stay for lunch, Mama? Maya hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, sweetheart. She can stay for lunch. The meal was awkward at first. Catherine sat stiffly, afraid to say the wrong thing. But Rose, with the pure heart of a child, asked her questions about David's childhood, about family history, about the mansion they now lived in. Slowly, carefully, Catherine began to smile. She told stories about David as a little boy, stories that made Rose laugh and David groan with embarrassment. She asked Rose about school, about her favorite subjects, about her dreams for the future. And Maya watched it all quietly, seeing a different side of the woman who had once threatened her. Not the cold, controlling matriarch, but a grandmother discovering her grandchild for the first time. After lunch, as Catherine prepared to leave, she approached Maya one more time. "Thank you," she said simply, "for being the bigger person. For having more Maya than I ever had." She smiled sadly. "I see now why David loved you. And why he never stopped." Maya didn't smile, but she nodded. "I'm doing this for Rose. And for David. Not for you, not yet. You'll have to earn that." "I will," Catherine promised. "However long it takes." After Catherine left, David found Maya standing on the balcony, watching the sunset over Lagos. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. That took incredible strength. Maya leaned back against him. "I'm tired of carrying anger, David. I'm tired of letting the past control our future. Your mother hurt us terribly, but I won't let that hurt define the rest of our lives." David turned her around to face him. "You're the most amazing woman I've ever known. Then and now. Always." Maya smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "We have our family now. We have each other. We have Rose. That's all that matters." Inside the house, Rose was drawing pictures at the dining table, pictures of their new family. A man, a woman, a little girl, and even a grandmother standing together in front of a big house. For the first time in 10 years, all the broken pieces were coming together. The pain wasn't gone, it would take time to heal completely. But they were healing together as a family. David kissed Maya softly as the sun set over their home. "I love you," he whispered. "And I will never let you go again." "I love you too," Maya replied. "And this time nothing will tear us apart." That evening, after Rose had gone to bed, David and Maya sat together in the living room that had once felt so cold and empty. Now it felt warm, alive, full of hope and possibility. They talked about their wedding plans, about Rose's education, about the future they would build together. They talked about forgiveness and second chances. They talked about love, the kind of love that survives separation, poverty, and loss. And as the Lagos night settled around them, they knew that their story, though it had been painful and difficult, had finally reached its true beginning. Not an ending but a new chapter. A chapter written not in tears and loss, but in love, forgiveness, and hope. David Thompson had found the woman he loved. Maya Johnson had found the man she'd never stopped loving. Rose had found the father she'd always dreamed of. And even Catherine had found a chance at redemption. Their family was complete at last. Broken pieces mended. Lost years acknowledged but not dwelling in them. And a future bright with promise stretching out before them. After 10 years of darkness, the light had finally come home. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?